Stand here.
Here?
Just... there. Albert Mason.
Arthur Morgan.
Pleasure. I'm trying to find and capture images of our great predators before our greatest predators kill them all and stick them on some clubhouse wall.
Good luck with that.
Yes, not the easiest. But, well, I love a challenge.
Hello, I'm Amanda Garner. Welcome back to the third episode of Ride With Me, a podcast about the queerness of Rockstar's Red Dead Redemption 2. Throughout my research for this podcast, I have learned how important the optional missions, Arcadia for Amateurs, has been to queer fans of the game. In these missions, Arthur gets a chance to fully step away from the expectations of his life, to experience the wholesome innocence of the naturalist photographer Albert Mason. Surrounded by the beauty and real danger of the North American wilds, Arthur and Albert form a kind and jovial friendship. A friendship that many gamers interpreted as romantic. This sparked a great deal of fan discussions, stories, and artwork based on the pairing. I was privileged to get the chance to interview the actor Matt Walton, who portrayed Albert Mason, and discuss with him his response to the fandom's interpretations of his character. I actually got to interview him twice. The first time, my iPad failed to record any audio, and Matt was such a saint in agreeing to do a second meeting, so there will be references to that first meeting. Matt, thank you for coming for being on here. And I know you've done a lot of different work as an actor. You've done stage, movies, video games, and voiceover work. What got you started into acting?
So I'd always done acting with my grade school and my church. Like we would put on little shows in the basement. My mother's best friend was sort of ran the activities. And I grew up in a very, very small town. My 8th grade graduating class had 11 people in it. It was really like those old days school house situations. Everybody in the town knew everybody. Very rural town. And in the church basement, we put on these shows. And those shows grew in size because our church attracted a lot of different towns. And then my grade school put on some shows. It just always came very easy to me. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something I wanted to do. I wished I was a better athlete, to be honest, because that's what all my friends were doing, was playing ball. I played, but my strength was in communicating. Mm-hmm. My father was an attorney and he was an altruist, so he never billed his clients. So, being a good Catholic boy and a Vietnam vet, he was a very generous guy. So I only say that because when I say lawyer, at least when I was growing up, it was like, oh, so you're a rich kid. I'm like, no, Dad, people keep saying that. And like, you don't have any money. So what's going on here? It took me years to figure out what that was about. Anyway, he was a great communicator and had a deep love for television and films. That was his hobby. So he introduced my brother and I to all the great films. And my first memory was going to see one of my earliest memories, certainly of the outside world, was seeing Star Wars when I was 4 years old. And that was like, for a lot of people my generation, it's like hearing, Homer's Odyssey for the first time if you lived 1,000 years ago. It was just such an advanced piece of entertainment for its time, and yet at the same time such a classical Shakespearean hero's journey. It was just I started buying the toys and I was a little director. I was playing with the toys, and I remember when I was in art class, the teacher said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "The next Steven Spielberg." So it had always been in me to get into show business. I really fell in love with theater in high school because I missed joining the football team. I got my schedules crossed because my brother and I were kind of raising ourselves by then. My mother passed away of cancer when I was 11, and she was only 38 years old. So it was, and my father sort of couldn't really handle it and sort of disappeared. So my brother and I developed a very strong work ethic from a very young age. We had to clothe and feed ourselves. So those two things combined made for the right constitution to enter this field. So I was in such a small town, and because I had to work through high school, I was missing my youth, basically. All my friends were going to parties and getting cars for their birthdays and, going into the city. Not me. I didn't have that luxury. And so what happened? I think I was a freshman in high school, and I was doing the fall musical. And one of the older juniors or seniors said, you're good. I go to this night school in Morristown, which is a little closer to New York City, and they always need guys. You should come and audition. We do some awesome musicals and stuff and all these cool plays. And so I went and auditioned for this school, and they gave me a scholarship. It was called the Worth Tyrrell School of Performing Arts on South Street in Morristown, New Jersey. Any of my Morris County fans out there will know South Street, right next to the Baskin Robbins there. And what was cool about that is they said, not only are you into the school, here's a scholarship, which means you don't have to pay for any of the classes. However, you have to be in every single production that we do. Right? So I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm learning this, I'm learning that, all after school at night for my junior and senior year of high school. Had no money for college. So if I was going to go anywhere, it had to be on a scholarship or, so I had a few criteria for my first year of school. But by then I had to reach the decision of whether I wanted to pursue visual arts, which was another thing I was good at naturally and enjoyed doing, drawing, and particularly comic book art. So I was contemplating a career in comic books, and this is 1991. So shortly after the Michael Keaton Batman, but before this Marvel Cinematic Universe, obviously, and even before the Superman reboot with Brandon Routh, where the technology, after Jurassic Park, the film technology finally caught up to the physics of what a superhero would look like if they were doing practicing their powers in the real world. The technology finally caught up to us in the late 90s. So this is even before that. So I determined I was not going to pursue comic book art because superheroes had no future. The kids I knew who were younger than me were not reading comic books. I was going to comic book conventions, but at that time, they were literally in basements of like the Best Western. It was all a bunch of comic book guys from The Simpsons. No, certainly no girls at all, let alone cosplay. I mean, good Lord, if I was a nerd today, it would be such a different experience. So I determined that this wasn't going to be a very viable profession. So little did I know. So I chose acting. And my criteria for college, for my theater, if I was going to, at that point, I had already been going in with an older kid to the city and auditioning for open calls. I'm at 15 and 16 going into New York on my own or with an older buddy, and we're hitting these open calls for these, regional theaters or these small shows in New York. And then, so I was ready to just start, It's like, do I need to go to 4 years of a conservatory program or anything like that for this actor training? But I auditioned for the Boston Conservatory, and they gave me a full scholarship. Again, because this is the 90s, early 90s, parents of my generation had not yet decided that entertainment and the arts was a viable profession for their kids to pursue. And it wasn't at the time. It has since become much more viable as entertainment has become the only thing the United States manufactures that the world buys, other than our technological advancements. They still buy our movies and TV shows. And after American Idol in the 2000s, that just exploded, the performing arts world, and all these, conservatory programs started opening up. So I was right in between that sweet spot. So I ended up going to Boston for 5 years, worked there professionally. That's when I first started to get professional work when I was 19, going to that school and working in the city. I remember auditioning with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck for movies, and it was kind of an interesting time. And then I moved to New York because I didn't have a car. I tried LA. I took a road trip out to LA with my friend, didn't have a car. Said, I can't get around here. I'd already known New York City at the time, and I was a hustler. So I moved to New York, and within a year, I got my first agent from an open call. And within 2 or 3 years, I started doing voiceovers. I wanted to be a singer, but I didn't have the chops for it. Just didn't have a good enough voice in my 20s to beat out Patrick Wilson, for example, or Chris Demantopoulos, those guys I was competing with in those days. Patrick Wilson actually still lives around the corner from me now. He's over here in Montclair, New Jersey. So we still chat. But I wanted to sing, but I was really good at talking.
Yeah.
Don't let this interview fool you. Like I said, I have not had any sleep, so I'm slurring my words.
Okay.
But I was good at talking, and another friend of mine who I used to wait tables with when I was in college, ran into him on the street, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm doing voiceovers in New York." I'm like, how do I get into this? Mm-hmm. And I just started poking around, and eventually a woman at Innovative Artists sat down with me, and I had a conversation with her. She's like, "Okay, great. We're going to sign you. Do not take any voiceover classes. Do not read any voiceover books. Do not take anyone's advice. Mm-hmm. Go into the audition, talk into the microphone the way you just talked to me, and you'll work." And I booked my first job. It was like, I don't remember. It was a heartburn medication commercial or something like that. Like, oh my heartburn's terrible, something like that. But then I started booking bigger and bigger jobs, and I was eventually able to stop bartending by my mid-20s. Mm-hmm. It was through this voiceover world that I read from my first video game, which was one of the early, what was it called? Well, my first video game was called Ashron's Call. Mm-hmm. But a buddy of mine who was at a neighboring school in Boston, he created the game, and he went on to create Guitar Hero.
Okay.
So this kid was the real deal.
Cool. Wow.
But I did a video game for him, which was a fantasy exploration, kind of like, do you remember the Zork books? Are you old enough to read Zork?
I'm 38, so maybe.
Choose your own adventures in the fantasy, very Dungeons and Dragons, So it was a game like that. But it was only voiceover then. They hadn't done performance capture at all. It wasn't even, I don't even think they were thinking about it then. But shortly after that, I did one of the early Grand Theft Autos. That was performance capture, but it wasn't as advanced. It was the first performance cap that I ever did, was the one of the Grand Theft Autos, one of the earlier ones. But then, so Rockstar had taken a shine to me for a while. And then, through that time, of course, I was doing plays, some episodic television, couple of independent films, nothing too major, but that's how I got started. And that's what led me to Rockstar.
What is your favorite role you've ever played?
Oh boy, favorite role I've ever played. Mm-hmm. Certainly Albert Mason is among the favorite roles I've ever played. And only in hindsight can I say that, based on sort of the success of the character and how unlikely this conversation was.
Yeah.
Roles, I can't think of a role that Burger in Hair. I don't know. Do you know that musical Hair?
Yes.
It's a 60s love rock musical. Mm-hmm. That started my career.
Okay.
I played that. I was on my way to Broadway with that show, but then 9/11 went down a week before we were supposed to open, so we never opened. So that was my favorite character, because he's like the primal leader of this hippie tribe, and I was a bit of a hippie back then. The nouveau hippie, the Woodstock 98 hippie, or Woodstock 99 hippie. So that was my favorite role. But my favorite project, without question, was I had a small part in a Coen Brothers movie.
Oh.
And Coen Brothers, when I was when I got into show business, I knew I'd work with people that I respected. I had no idea I'd get a chance to work with my heroes. The films and the experiences I had watching their films as a young adult was so singular. And so to get to work with them quite randomly, quite by chance, was amazing. Yeah. So it's called Burn After Reading. I'm of course a talk show host. Most of my gigs have been Wall Street tycoons or news reporters, those kinds of hosts,
Yeah.
So that was my favorite project for sure.
But getting to work with people like the Coen Brothers, I would do any role just to get to work with them.
Anything.
So, yeah.
With those guys. And they were so cool. It was one of the most tranquil sets I'd ever been on.
Yeah.
And what was so funny is, so between turnarounds, when they have to move the camera to the other side to get the reverse shot, the smaller Coen, Ethan,
Mm-hmm.
would get up to his director's chair, side saddle it, sort of like lay in it hammock wise with his feet over the arms and play this little guitar and just sort of serenade the crew as they were setting up. Then the crew, I noticed, were all very well dressed, which was strange because you work long hours on a film set. I'm like, why is everybody so well dressed? They're like, oh, we all go out to dinner after to nice places because we never go into overtime. The Coen brothers know exactly what they're doing. They plan plenty of time. None of their producers come in and bother them and say, come on, on the clock. No, they are our tours, and everyone who gets to work with them becomes our tours just in their presence. It was so cool.
That's awesome. That's amazing. I love their work. Anytime they put music into their, a music-based film, I always love their stuff. So this is a good way to segue into Red Dead, because I was thinking of Coen films, and they love to do that kind of music that you see in these movies. I mean, in the game. But can you share with me your experience, the experience you had filming with Red Dead?
So that job came at a weird time in my life. I had some personal issues, and I went back to bartending for a summer, because an old friend of mine who I used to bartend with, he was leaving his post. And he's like, I just need a guy for the summer to manage this cool rooftop bar. I'm like, I need a break from my home life. I'll take the gig. So as I was training for the job, I went in and read for a couple roles in Red Dead. And I remember the Albert character the most, because I got to be the most physical in the audition. I remember doing all those crazy like leg up things and all that sort of Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton kind of physical comedy. But I didn't hear for a while, and it was right when I was supposed to start training at the bar. I got the call, hey, we need you for a week I can't tell you where we do it, but we need you for a week on set for this video game. You're playing the photographer guy. Oh, cool, great. Told the bar, I'm like, sorry guys, I can't work this week. They were pissed, but I went and worked with Roger. It was just Roger and I for a week in the studio. And of course we got along like old thieves, and I had a great old time. And he was just, he had been working on it for a long time. So he was a very welcoming father figure, for anybody that was coming in fresh. And this was the first time I had the facial scan. This was the first time the camera was, here. It was a lot different than the last motion capture I'd ever done. The technological advances were huge. 3D printing was new. So all our helmets were custom 3D printed so they wouldn't shake and the camera would stay steady. Yeah. Crazy stuff like that. And so Roger and I would sit in our little light up suits, our little suits with the ping pong balls on them, and take our damn heads off and, relax and drink water and just talk. And then we would go in and we would play. I think we're old theater actors, he and I. So because we had developed that rapport, we just brought that right in the set. The directors on the piece are just the coolest guys in the world. So open, like, just show us. We'll know it when we see it, just play, And they had built all these little the mountain that I fall off of. They had built a little hill, and the boat that we're in. We had to get. I remember specifically the camera that they gave. I had to be really specific about where I put my hand, and what was really cool is with every vignette that we shot, we had to return to the starting position so that they could loop the movement in and make it look like where you start is where you end. So it was a totally new movement theater kind of experience for me, To say nothing of the fact that I'm in this crazy wardrobe. And so needless to say, and I remember we discussed this last time, your imagination has to come into play so much when you're doing this. But that's what theater is. You know what I mean? Film, you don't buy it if you're not in a realistic place. Like the art of film is about manipulating history. You're seeing something, even if it takes place in the future, it's already been done. Mm-hmm. You're watching something else unfold before you. Whereas live theater is happening in the moment.
Yeah.
Can't happen if you're not there. It didn't happen if you weren't in the audience. And that can't have a theatrical experience without an audience. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was more like being in that black box theater at the Boston Conservatory with my idiot friends coming up with crazy new plays and doing all these acting games and, just really diving in. It was like having to dive into the imagination of a child, cops and robbers, riding pretend horses, like on a sawhorse, and fake guns. Like we had holsters, but the guns they had balls on them too, so they could track movements of all that stuff. It was really like being a kid again.
That and I think that's why so many people love the game is there is that sense of getting to go back to virtually being part of your childhood again and that imagination. That's amazing stuff. Yeah. This game has been out, for a while, 2018, and it seems to be gaining in popularity. It was already huge because of the original game, and then it was gaining popularity, especially over the pandemic. And as we had discussed before, Albert Mason became a major fan favorite. Fans loved him for so many different reasons. His characterization, they're among the most favorite of the actual missions in the game. And while writing is such an important part of this, as I've said before, it's your acting and interpretation of Albert that brought this character to life and allowed folk to appreciate this story. How does this feel, knowing how much fans love this character?
Well, it was a big surprise. I remember when I finally did start working at the bar after shooting all those scenes, thinking, well, that was cool. I can't wait for this to come out. And years passed. Mm-hmm. Years passed. And one day I was in a GameStop with my son picking up something for him. And I saw the standee for Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm like, oh, that's the game I did a few years ago. So I take a picture of it and post it on Twitter saying co-starring a certain someone, thinking that the game had already been released, was to no big deal. It was out for a while because I had to sign all these NDAs. Yeah. Well, they came down so hard on me because I didn't know the game was released. We're weeks from releasing. How could you? Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. Fortunately, I didn't give anything else away. I didn't say I'm in this. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or I might not have ever worked with Rockstar again. They're that hardcore. Yeah. And I'm not saying that to insult them. I'm saying that to compliment them. Yeah. It's how these games are successful, that they're able to keep these things under wraps, for sure. Yes. Movie studios can't do it. So that gaming studios can, with a gigantic crew, is really impressive. And Rockstar is cream of the crop video game. So all that being said, then we had our opening weekend, and we were the biggest opening weekend in the history of entertainment. We beat the Avengers in terms of opening weekend grosses. Yeah, our game beat the Avengers, which was $1 billion. I don't know how that happened. So that's a real feather in your cap. Like, I happen to be in the biggest piece of entertainment in history. You know what I mean? But we get no love from Hollywood from it, but we all did get nice bonuses. That was nice. So then it was out for a while, and a couple of my gamer friends like, I played your missions. That was fun, dude. And then the fandom, like, start seeing pictures on Instagram. And then Raj, his life became just a carnival. He was off on private jets to all these Comic-Cons and all these appearances, and a couple of big leads. And I remember it was because of all their appearances that people started reaching out to me through my social media saying, hey, we traced the IMDb. We know you're Albert Mason. Why aren't you at the Comic-Con? Like, well, they didn't invite me to Comic-Con. I'm just a minor character in these side missions. They're like, no, we love your character. You got to get your ass to the Comic-Con. So I said, Rockstar, I'm getting some love. Any Comic-Cons? No Comic-Cons for Albert Mason. But the fandom continued to grow. And because I started connecting with these fans, they would send me their art. Mm-hmm. And I'd having drinks with Rod. He's like, have you noticed? Did you see how the fans have decided what our character history is? I'm like, yes, Roger, I have. And I don't have any problem with that at all. And we just had a big old laugh because we were like best friends, or just star-crossed lovers as actors. Yeah, in that week that we shot it, and then as characters in the grand scheme of the story. And now a lot of that is helped by virtue of the fact that it's a very different world you enter when you start hanging with Albert. Mm-hmm. The danger is not the same. it's like, the danger is how klutzy I am, not that I'm armed or a threat of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a pain in the ass as opposed to a major obstacle to overcome, which is most of the journey throughout. It's a lot of double crossing and who can you trust. And right off the bat, I wanted this guy to be someone that did not understand the dangers of the world he was in, not just the natural world, but the whole universe that Red Dead was. He's such a fish out of water.
Yeah.
And I wanted him to. I definitely didn't want him to have a gun. Did they have a gun on me?
No.
No, they didn't have a gun. I didn't want a gun. I wanted to be a pacifist. And so that all just sort of worked out. They had that in mind, or my take on the character was exactly what the script needed. It was one of those magic things where the right guy for the right thing came on. I wouldn't say that about every role I've played, certainly. I would say that about some of the roles I haven't played that I should have played. But this one was just this magic thing, and that the fans reacted to it was so cool, because here you are. That's all you ever want, right? Is your work to move somebody. Mm-hmm. I want to be. Most actors are not interested in the fame. Mm-hmm. Actors are not interested. They're interested in the art, and the art is a sharing art. And 1,000 times, 999 times out of 1,000, you do not get to experience feedback from your fans or from the viewer. Like if you're on a TV show, maybe somebody says, "Hey, I liked your show." Yeah, but you watched the show. You didn't live the show. So you have some differences there. You live this game, right? So these people, by virtue of just the medium, become friends, right? And that the fans took to it. It was similar when I was on the soap operas. There was a similar thing, although the video game fans, no offense to the soap fans, but the gamer fans are a lot cooler than the soap fans. The gamer fans, they get it. The soap fans weren't so sure that what they were seeing wasn't real. Whereas the gamer's like, no, I know, I'm fully immersed. You're my brother, but I know you're the actor behind the motion cap, because they're so into the technology of it and how it's made. Mm-hmm. You just don't have that level of crazy with the gamers that you do with the soap actors. But it was the same kind of thing, that you're immersed in this world every day. These people are in your living room every day. That's the thing about TV. And why people have a hard time separating themselves sometimes from the fiction. The brain doesn't know. We haven't evolved as creatures to know that the screen isn't just a window into the next room. So it feels like the people in your living room are in your living room. It's why podcasts are so successful, especially when you're commuting. So you're driving and 3 people are talking. Well, they may as well be in the car with you. Yeah. That's the feel of it. And that's why particularly the podcast format is so successful, because, sorry, I got lawnmowers outside, but because of its informal nature and the pauses and the vocal hiccups and stuff, to the listener, it feels like I'm having a conversation. I'm listening to a conversation amongst people in my presence. Same thing with gamers. Same thing with like soap operas, because they were on every day. Yeah. It happened to me when I was young. I would watch Friends, syndicated episodes of Friends at night. Have a couple drinks and watch the Friends. And I remember after every episode, I think, it feels like they live right down the hall. I feel like I could just go knock on Joey Chandler's door and say, "You guys want a beer?" It's literally like that, because it was every day. 5 days a week, I'd watch these guys for like an hour. But beyond all that, beyond all the sort of science of audience versus medium, the fans started writing their own fiction and imagining these characters and extrapolating their relationships to represent relationships in their own life, and finding companionship, a commonality, finding an unspoken understanding of the love between 2 people. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something too about the desolation and the danger of that world, where there's finally some tranquility. Yeah, he's a fool, but he's an artist, and everybody loves a muse. You know what I mean? So
he's very kind, and
and in the world where it's a very rough world. So I think my character is as much a gift to the world as the world is an eye-opening thing for my character. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It really is, and that is I mean, that's in a nutshell how people have connected with this character, and how we interpret why he's so important to Arthur's development, is because he is this just genuinely kind person and respectful person, and that's what people need. And so many queer gamers who've played this game just connected so much to that, because as I've said to you before, a lot of us, that's how we communicate ourselves, our identities as queer people to each other, is to show that genuine interest and kindness and passion about the things that we do to connect with other people. And so that's why so many people, connected to Albert.
Something that just occurred to me, actually, if I can interject.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just occurred to me. I think the reason the people buy into what we'll call an extended relationship between Albert and Arthur is because it's feasible. What I mean is, if I were just a fop, a weakling, I got to save this idiot.
Yeah,
I'm also a sort of man on my own. I'm a pioneer my own self. It's in a different world. I'm almost braver than all the other characters, because I'm in a strange place doing something that is really not wise. You know what I mean? But my purpose, I think, is respected by at least Arthur, the only other character I really interact with. But I think that's why there's a respect there, or why that a relationship could be feasible, because I don't think it would be if my character were, not someone that someone like an Arthur could fall in love with. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and he's just so different, and he's like a breath of fresh air to Arthur's life. And because the missions are optional, the player gets to play this, and Arthur actually enjoys hanging out with Albert.
I did make that connection too, the optional nature of it, rather than a required mission. To say, I know, I'm going to choose to go. That's it. That's a fascinating observation. Yeah.
Yeah, and the way that y'all played it, it's not played at, Albert's is a bit bumbling, but it's not like Arthur has to be there. He wants to be there. He wants to hang out with him. He wants to do these things with him. And so that's how people, I think, like you said, they can see it as being a natural thing to occur. And I mean, there's so much stereotypes about how queer relationships form, and so much of it is really cemented in friendship. And so that's, I think, is why so many people also connect those two as well. So
yeah, and I tell you, I swear to God, the only reason that happened, because it doesn't happen every time you do something where two characters are supposed to have a certain amount of chemistry. The reason that happened is because Roger and Matt had chemistry from the minute we hung out.
Yes.
From the minute we sat down on those couches in the green room to suit up, we were like, oh, birds of a feather. Oh, yeah, we have mutual respect for each other. Both obviously, capable of doing our jobs, so none really had to take. And I'll never forget this one line. Just the way Roger, you could tell that he'd been playing this character in heavy situations, even though with a lighthearted touch, beautifully played with a lighthearted touch. This was like, okay, it was almost like a vacation for the kind of acting Roger had to do, and he was able to get into a different style. And the rest was just kismet. It just unfolded from there. All those things was great, and that's a testament to the writing.
It is, but a lot of us feel like if it had been done by any other actor and that chemistry was different, it would have it could have had a different result. What that result would be, I have no idea, but your chemistry in the scenes really definitely shines through. So
I think a lot of the best art is accidental.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know what I mean? The stuff that moves people the most, like certainly for an actor, you come off a take and you think, well, that was the one, man. That was great. And then you watch it back, you're like, I can't believe how terrible that is. Or you'll come off a take and be like, boy, I don't know about that one. I didn't feel good at all. And then you watch it back, you're like, it's genius. It's this weird thing. If you got to get your mind out of it. And I think both Roger and I, our mind was out of whatever we were dealing with.
you've talked, you mentioned to me how fans have been reaching out to you, telling you and sharing their artwork and their stories and the way that they.
Every single picture I've found online, I've screen capped or saved the image of, and I have it in a folder.
Mhm.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to put a couple up on my wall because like every actor, I've got like, that's that thing from Burn After Reading. That's the thing from the Onion Sports Dome. That's the thing from the show I did in LA. That's the big morning. You know what I mean? So I need my Red Dead art up on my wall here. So I'm going to pick a couple ones.
Well, and you tell me, it's like you're one of the few actors whose face they actually kept for the character.
That's right. That's right. We talked about that. How about that? Right?
Yeah. And so your face is in all the artwork, and I just love that. I love that you get to see your face doing all these different things and these different scenarios, and I think that's great, because it's like Arthur looks a little bit like Roger Clark, but
A little bit.
not so much as Albert does. And so I think that's just really, really cool that they kept your features for it.
You know why that is in your research? Because I was curious about that. Why they didn't just use Roger's face? Why? Or had they designed the character already? Was he a holdover from the first one?
They were trying to do a combination of several different like classic Western actors.
Oh, right on.
And then they ended up just mixing in his features with it.
Cool.
So there's certain things, like his eyes are in it, obviously.
Sure.
And certain things, but it's not like. It's not like with Rob, where it's like a completely different face, So
I wonder if it was budgetary or a creative decision. Are other minor characters like me? Is it their faces, or are they somewhat designed?
No. So like Mick, who plays Sean, looks nothing like his character, and like I think like the character looks more like Brendan Gleeson than the actor who plays him, and but it's just, I think that the developers knew what they wanted and they made decisions on that. I know that there is some early concept artwork of Albert before, and he doesn't look anything like what he ends up looking like in the game. So something about you, the game developers like keeping this, so they liked what you did. So yeah.
How do you not want to render this mug, huh? What's so funny is like every little. You're your own worst critic. When you look in the mirror, all your little like, my nose goes this way over here. Yeah. I'd see the character. I'm like, they got that crooked nose thing. You didn't even straighten the fucking nose. That's cool. That's cool.
They liked what they saw, I guess. Overall, because I remember when we talked last year, you hadn't heard, quite the impact on that your character has had on queer people. As I've said, there's a lot of people who from finding your character and playing those missions, felt more connected with the game in different ways. They started finding connection to themselves as a queer person in the game, and were able to identify other things in the game that felt relatable to their identity. How does that feel knowing? Because I know you're straight, and how does that know being a straight actor, that your character has become kind of a gamer queer icon?
Well, the thing about actors is, you come to become an ally right out of the bat. Your friends from high school, were closeted. All your directors, in the theater, we'd been there a long time.
Yeah,
we were down with our friends for a long time. You can't not be. You can't even participate in the performing arts without hanging out with people from the LGBT community. It's the reason I've been told is coming from a place of unacceptance, or in some cases outright persecution, you find solace, comfort, and joy in the fantasy world, the world of theater, the world of music, dance, art. To call it all fantasy is not the right word, but escapism, or a community, certainly. Like the way I feel about theater people, they're my people.
Yeah.
When I'm in a crowd of theater people, I'm home.
Yeah.
I'm in a crowd of accountants, I can hang, but I'm not having any fun. I don't feel like I'm at home. You know what I mean? So back to the original question, which was, how did it feel to learn what
To
impact
learn that your character has become a gamer queer icon.
I couldn't be more proud of that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is not something that I set out to do.
Yeah.
So that's even better that it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
that some piece of art that I created has affected people in a positive way, and continues to do so. It's all I ever set out to do this for, because that's what I experienced when I was in the audience as a kid. It saved my life.
Yeah.
You know, the joy I found in the concerts and the musicals and the movies that I saw and watched, the TV shows, the sort of safe space and heaven that I found there, I'm now part of making for other people, which is why I went into it in the first place. It's not like I want to make, well, money was obviously, it'd be nice to make money, you know, but I knew that wasn't necessarily going to happen. I wanted to be around my people. I wanted to be in a place of joy and making joy, and to give back what I had gotten growing up. So to hear that's at almost 50 years old, that's starting to happen finally, you know, as an actor, it's I can't even think of the word. It's beyond an honor. It's beyond a privilege. It's a joy, and I'm flattered and grateful, and I'm thrilled, just thrilled.
So despite all the positivity, there has been, about queer identification from the game. There has been a bit of a cruel response from some gamers, as there is in every fandom. What would you say to any gamer or fan of the show, of the game, who has been like more negative or not necessarily disagreeing, but like really negative towards the queer gamers who have identified with characters like yours?
So are you saying that you've seen online commentary? It's like when somebody say, "Oh, I love Albert and Arthur," or what would you say? Yeah, the AM2, right?
Albert. Yeah, 2 a.m.
Yeah. 2 a.m. is even better, baby. So you're saying you've seen a lot of negative feedback in like comment sections, and
it depends on where you go. Like,
where would I go to see this negative commentary? Just curious, because then I can comment on. I don't need to see it. I'm just wondering where it takes place so that I can.
Reddit is cruel towards queer Red Dead fans.
Okay.
Yeah, and
so they form forums and discussion panels, and people slide in and give and make meat shit.
Yeah.
Well, that goes on everywhere. First of all, no matter what your interest is, someone's out there to fuck with you. You know, we can talk policy, but if it's something that's against someone's religion or if it's a self-hatred kind of thing, the conversation is going to go nowhere fast. So ignore, block, delete, report, move on. And get some gatekeepers. If there's forums, you know, where people are really, you know, opening up, get some gatekeepers on those forums. You know, make sure because that helps. It's like having a security guard at your door. You know?
Well, see, and you know, going back to when I first started like going online trying to find other people who, you know, love the game, you know, I went to Reddit, and that was a nightmare. But I through all the shit that I had to go through, I would find people who'd say like, "Oh, we really loved Albert," and I'd be like, "Oh, I want to talk to this person." And so a lot of fans ended up connecting because of going back to Albert and other characters as well. But a lot of people found that if you said we loved Albert, then that was like a safe person to talk to.
Oh, that's cool. I was code.
You became kind of like this, like, okay, if you like Albert, okay, this is someone I could talk to safely. So, and then like I said, the people I've got who are going to be coming on doing this panel with me for my podcast are all people I've met online in different parts of the world and different parts of the country, who have all connected over things like this. So yeah.
Oh, I said hi, and I love them to death.
I will. And actually, you know, my last thing here, and I'm gonna, and I over it to you one time before, but I've got to read it again because this fan is just one of the coolest. Red Dead artists out there and photographers, and
That's right.
yeah, from Finland, names goes by Sim, and they have a beautiful art style. Who love to do Albert drawings. Basically, they said they just want to dress like Albert all the time, and they're trying to figure out how to make that happen.
I was coming back.
Yeah,
the trousers are back.
yes, yes. So again, it's the first person I wanted to tell that I was interviewing you. And they sent me this message. I'm a photographer for my profession. I've been mostly doing nature photography and occasionally as work. Before I started to play Red Dead 2 over a year ago, I was really close to giving up on photography. After a while playing the game and doing Albert's missions, I got inspired to start doing some film photography again. Also, Albert is a big part of my art and drawing. Drawing him always makes my mood better. So huge thank you for bringing Albert Mason to life.
Thank you, man. You know, it's so great. Is again, it was an accident, you know, or it was fate, you know, because
yeah.
You mentioned the camera. It just reminded me. I was given this. My mother had passed away, and I was staying with a great uncle in my extended family out in Long Island, and he's this old Italian. The only Italian in our family. We're all Irish and English.
Mm-hmm.
One of my grandmother's sister married an Italian, Tony, and so he did well in the wire business, and he, you know, I don't know, he just noticed that I was kind of a lonely kid, and he's like, "You ever play with a camera?" I'm like, no, I haven't." He's like, "Oh." So he gave me this old Canon TX 35 millimeter camera. It's like, "Keep it, play with it. Here's what this means. Here's this, keep it." So I went out with this camera, got some film, started taking pictures, and I got really good at that. And I remember going on the Circle Line tour and getting high speed film and capturing helicopters with the rotors spinning, and I think, you know, putting a lens in front of your face to see the world the way you want to see it is extremely empowering, creative, and joyful. You get to focus in on what makes you happy, rather than all the other stuff in your view, you know what I mean? And then capture those moments. So I had never really even, that's the thing about an actor. The best advice I can give actors is go do other shit. Go do everything else that's nothing to do with an actor. You always be able to pull from it, even if it's subconsciously. And here after all this time, this first time I realized I actually do have a love affair with the camera. And Ansel Adams, for that matter. I have some Ansel Adams photography books. So I think that was just, you know, it was one of those given circumstances. I didn't have to prepare, didn't have to do that research. It was already in the DNA. You know what I mean? So I think if a photographer connected to the way I was playing a photographer, then I was doing something truthful that they recognized without trying. You know what I mean? Again, the accidental thing. But that, again, that thing I made in the studio one day while between bartending gigs changed someone's life for the better. I mean, who needs money? Isn't that what we're doing? Isn't that what isn't that the highest thing, is to make people happy in a world that's so often unhappy, right? I mean, I'm honored. I'm thrilled. I would love to. We should pose or something. We should get. I don't know. That's what we talked about last time, right?
Yeah. See if Rockstar would let you
do a photo session out in Finland. I've always wanted to visit Finland.
Yeah.
We'll try to make that connection work out.
I will talk to them about that. They're going to be thrilled, terrified.
So fun. Oh my God, it'd be so fun.
And before we go, is there any you have any upcoming projects? I know you mentioned something to me before, but go ahead.
Oh yeah, so catch me this summer in the R-rated comedy starring Jennifer Lawrence called No Hard Feelings. Got one nice funny scene with Jennifer Lawrence. It was really cool to shoot, and we haven't had a really, gut-bustingly funny R-rated comedy released during the summer for a long time. Like the last one I can even remember is Something About Mary.
Yeah.
Everybody went to see it. I didn't even think it was all that fun. I'm not big into blue humor. unless it's done really well, like Book of Mormon, where it transcends the blueness. But this is plenty raunchy and plenty funny, and she's hilarious, and it should be a big hit. So you can catch me in that.
Yes.
And what else? I've got a podcast coming out next year. It's the first one. It's part of an art series. This first one's called "On the Teaching of Acting," where I go back and I talk to every acting teacher I had that either offered me something that's helped me in my career, my acting, or hasn't, or the time I spent with them didn't help me. And the quest is to understand if acting can even be taught, or if it's just guiding natural talent. And if it can be taught, how do you teach it to people who wouldn't otherwise come naturally to it? And the last question I'm trying to answer is, why are the British so much better at it than Americans? If you think, name your 10 favorite actors, 8 of them are going to be British, 100% sure. So you'll find out I would give the answer away, but you'll find out why. And it's not just for performing artists. It's I think anybody that appreciates TV and films will dig it.
That is very unique.
I'll post that on my Instagram when that's coming out. I'll have lots of vertical videos, sections from it. And then we go into a follow-up on storytelling. Yeah. It's going to be an episode podcast on storytelling, and we're going to start doing educational videos on YouTube with master teachers. So, master class, right? Yeah. Well, try learning acting from Helen Mirren. You're not going to be able to do it. No. But Helen Mirren had a teacher. And if I can get that teacher to talk about how he taught Helen Mirren how to act, then I think that's valuable. So anyway, that's one of the things. That's one of the sort of side projects I'm working on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm definitely going to check that out, because that is such a cool concept.
Yeah, I'm really trying to preserve the arts now, because with AI coming around and people really. When last time I was in Hollywood, everybody I met who was a young person was there to become an influencer. I did not meet any young person who was in Hollywood to become an actor. Not one. And they were now older people, because before influencers, but influencers have become such a thing. And that's not, there's a creative element to it. There's a performative element to it, but the end goal is not art. Yeah. Art's end goal is you build the thing, like what we did with Red Dead, that the character inspired all this thing. That I feel like was some kind of artistry. Yeah. I hope, because it did not have that goal baked in. The influencer's goal is clicks, likes, money. Yeah. And there's a lot of ways to get that. And I respect anybody that can. I'm not shitting on the culture of it, but I'm trying to make sure that the art part stays separate and alive for all creators. That's my new life goal for the second half of my life.
Well, and I agree with you on that. You see the effect of your 2-week project with Red Dead has on people, and it's going to be something that stays with us forever. So I appreciate that, and appreciate you meeting with me today again.
Anytime.
Yes. Thank you.
If you think of anything we haven't covered, just shoot me back and we'll jump on real quick. Oh, remember you said that thing? Can I just have you say that thing here? Yeah. Or just email me and I'll just read it into my phone or whatever.
And I'm going to send you my I was told I had to send you my one Albert art. And I'll send that to you later. But
yes, and tell everybody, please send me all the art you make. My DMs are open. I don't always check them, but I will welcome any fans at the Matt Walton. I will try to interact. I will repost art. I really appreciate everybody's admiration and appreciation. It goes right back to you. It really does. It means it's so cool. Oh, who wouldn't want people drawing pictures of them? You know what I mean? That's so cool. I was a drawer, so I would draw pictures of people I loved, and so it's just great. I really appreciate that you reached out to me and that we were able to meet and talk.
Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Thanks so much. All right.
I want to once again thank Matt Walton for the interview and all he had to share. It was such a pleasure to speak with him again. Despite whoever we feel Arthur Morgan should be in a relationship with, We can all appreciate the story and possible romance he had with Albert. The character himself is so relatable to us because his passion for his interests, his quirky nature, and his honest kindness are all things queer folk want to be recognized for, instead of the negative stereotypes that much of society still place on us. We welcome him, much as Arthur did, a moment in our lives where we can be true to ourselves without judgment. And for Arthur, those moments are clearly reflected in a full-spread journal sketch that he made of Albert taking photos, which, for a lot of artists, is a real sign of affection. In the next episode, I will be focusing on the topic of gender in Red Dead Redemption 2, and how this game has helped many fans learn about and accept parts of themselves in terms of societal expectations on gender. So until the next episode, I encourage all of you to be loyal to what matters and to always be gay, do crimes.